There is so much I want to say about this that it gets so confusing and this video gets so long. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll keep going. Why would anyone listen to black metal? I want to make this video because black metal is music that it is not like my main genre. I'm not a black metal guy. I happen to listen to some black metal, but I'm very picky about it. But the stuff that I listen to, I really like. Like it has importance for me. So I want to convey why I feel that way, what is the allure of this kind of music, and also see if I can add some nuance to a lot of the bullshit that goes on within black metal that I, and potentially you as well, don't ever want to be associated with. This video is not for the true believers, the people that are already deeply into black metal. If you are, and well, you're free to watch out of like curiosity, and then get mad at me in the comments for being wrong about something. But instead, this video is for people who are on some degree aware of what black metal is, but wary of it, or put off by it, or just not convinced that it has any artistic merit. So I'm gonna try to change your mind. Maybe we'll see if that succeeds. If you are completely unaware of what black metal is, I'm gonna do a super quick sort of recap, because this is not gonna be like an educational video about that. But it is extreme metal plotted on a graph. Take, you know, rock and roll and early heavy metal and whatever, and plot it on a graph, and it gets more extreme. It gets faster, harder, more distorted, more dissonant, all these things. The singing turns into screaming and growling and all of that. So if you have this graph, and I don't know what your coordinate system is, X and Y coordinates, but imagine a graph. And if you plot that in here, and the outer boundaries of the graph is sort of what constitutes music, at the extreme end, I think we'll find black metal. It has taken all of these attributes that have been dialed up over the decades within metal and like taken them super, super far. Yes, there's other genres that might have like a slightly higher BPM or whatever. I just think the overall aesthetic, the overall sort of shock value of metal, which has been a point of the music from the beginning, that has been dialed up pretty much as far as it can go. Maybe I'm lacking imagination, but to me, as far as it can go within the confines of what is music. You can go beyond to non-music, harsh noise and stuff like that, and there's some black metal that sort of straddles that boundary. But I'm here to talk about the stuff that sort of still remains within the boundaries of music. So musically, black metal, like most genres, has a lot of range. Black metal actually has a pretty insane range, but it is commonly fast and harsh. It is adversarial. It is deliberately ugly a lot of the times, as to exclude people who aren't true believers. Like, you got to get over a certain threshold to accept this sort of just malignancy of the sound itself. It forgoes a lot of traditional sort of rock musical structures. The genetic imprint of that type of music is almost entirely bred out of black metal. At least the good kind, which is, you know, defined by whether I like it or not. Rock and metal has always had sort of a provocative angle to it, fueled by, you know, angry young men wanting to get a rise out of people. But the things you do to be edgy and provocative and all of that has to be dialed up. If what was edgy in 1970 isn't going to be edgy now. And so it gets amplified and people outdo each other. The music gets more extreme, the lyrical content gets more extreme, the ideology around it gets more extreme, the visual identity of the genre gets more extreme. Like all of it just escalates. Black metal isn't new. It's been around since the 80s, essentially, or late 80s. It's starting to take the sort of form we're seeing still to this day. So yes, it's super extreme, and part of the problem is that angry, edgy, provocative young men aren't just doing it for the theatrics always. Most do, I think, but not always. And when the themes have been dialed up to these extremes and you take it seriously, you're in kind of deep water. And black metal famously has, church burnings and murders and a lot of really bad shit going on. So I'm not a black metal guy. I don't want to be identified as a black metal guy because I don't want to be associated with a lot of the shit that goes on in this genre. But this genre also has, and to answer the question of the video, this genre also has an incredible array of creativity. It has a sort of an emotional palette that I can't really find in other music. It is just super compelling to me to have some of my own emotions mirrored in this type of sound. Like who hasn't like put on a sad song when you have a broken heart, or there's certain music you want to listen to when you're upbeat and happy. The same is true for like anger and despair and wrath, and well, anger and wrath are kind of the same. You get my point. Like there are emotions that you want to deal with by having them reflected to you in music and to explore them through music. That is true for me and true for a lot of other people. And I just happen to think that black metal allows me to do some of that in a range of emotions that I couldn't deal with through other types of music. So if black metal is, harsh and adversarial and deliberately ugly, then why listen to it? Well, through whatever neurological processes, it generates an emotional response that we derive pleasure from. I'm not going to say it generates happiness directly, but we do certain things, we consume certain types of media, we entertain certain ideas that might not be benign and positive, but that have meaning and provide value to us. Watch horror movies, watch the news when terrible things happen. And then, why would anyone feel like hate or jealousy or misery or angst or despair or vengefulness or whatever negative emotions? Well, because they're human emotions. We all have them to some degree, unless you're like the Dalai Lama or whatever. It's just very human to have these types of emotions, and it's very human to want to deal with them. And some of us want to deal with them by having them reflected in music. People in general like to have their emotions and opinions validated. And listening to something that sounds the way you feel is a form of emotional validation. So it's just a feel-good thing, even though the emotions themselves are not positive. And thematically, it is, blood, fire, death, evil, and the perpetrator of evil, Satan himself. And I can, sit and contextualize and relativize as much as I want, but I have to, if I'm talking about black metal, I'm going to talk about like why would anyone listen to black metal, thus trying to justify listening to black metal. I am implored to address the prevalence of Satanism within black metal. I'm not here to offer you a thesis on black metal, and I'm not here to defend the entire genre, but I want to talk about the value it gives me, and it's just really hard to do that without addressing the, well, not elephant in the room, but the goat in the room, I guess, and that is the Satanism that is sprinkled across the genre, not in every band, not in every label. Some of it, some black metal is just black metal in its form and not in its ideology, and then some people insist that that makes it not real black metal. Blah blah blah. I don't care. Taking it face value is just complete nonsense. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in the supernatural, be it crystals or chakras or imaginary goat daddy in a fiery lake. I just don't believe in it. So I can't really think about this in any other way than it being metaphorical. Or, of course, that its proponents are simply delusional and misled. I think, and this is where it gets super tricky, I think, like with the whole history of heavy metal, like so much is just image and posing and make believe. Black metal in particular is just one giant LARP, live action roleplay. It it is the same mentality as someone, making a cardboard sword and beating each other up with in the park. It's make believe. The problem is that some people involved in this stuff don't realize it's make believe and take it seriously. And that leads to some bad shit. And it attracts some bad people with some bad ideas. And it's stuff I don't want to be associated with. So I think about this as a metaphor. That doesn't help, of course. Me thinking that, oh, all of these expressions around Satanism and the occult and whatever in black metal, that's a metaphor for something else. That doesn't help the fact that bad shit is being done in the name of black metal. My interpretation doesn't affect that. But it is the prism through which I view this expression, this subculture of music, and it is the lens through which I interpret what's being said and done. But so if the Satanism is just scaffolding for something else, then what is that something else? Why is Satanism so prevalent in this type of music? Well, let's go back to angry young men. That's where it starts. So what drives them? Well, angry young men want to reject morals and traditions and ideals from their parents, and the more violently they push off from that, the more sort of momentum they get into the world to form their own identity. And if the parents then happen to stand for Christian morals and values and traditions, then that's what you reject. And the most sort of obvious way to reject that is to say, I'm on Team Satan. And another thing that's just very common in angry young men, and thus common in black metal, is two very sort of different extremes of sense of self-worth. You have the I'm worthless and need to die suicidal thing, you're just super miserable. And in black metal, that comes out as DSBM, depressive suicidal black metal. And that is a way for people of that mindset, of that period in life, to have their emotions and thoughts reflected back to them through music. The other end of that spectrum is the mega confident, I'm the most elite alpha wolf medieval warrior overlord in the cosmos. And weirdly, these two very incompatible things both exist in black metal, and they might exist in the same person, which is weird, but that's what it's like sometimes to be an angry young man. And to explain that to yourself and maybe to the world, it's not going to go through God, is it? He's not going to cut it. Satan. That's how we justify feeling this way. And then it's also just all fantasy. Like I said, black metal is a giant LARP. It's all make-believe. And the indulgence in the make-believe is also a time-honored tradition for angry young men. And actually men in general. Look at the Orthodox Church and what they're doing. And what I mean by that is, it is ritual, it is scripture, it is symbols, it is, all of that stuff, the occult and mysticism and blah, blah, blah. That has been alluring to men forever. And it's just that we don't tend to do it through religion as much anymore because we have movies and Dungeons and Dragons and shit like that. Satanism is just a more potent dose of that stuff, and used as an excuse to gluttonize in, well, symbols and rituals and the occult in general. You also get this quest for guidance and meaning in black metal. Now, often a quest for guidance and meaning means spirituality and religion, traditionally. But if you've rejected that, then you're going to have to find some substitute. And then, boom, there goes Satanism again. And related to that, the word true is used a lot in black metal. And it has different meanings, but like to be true to the ideals of the genre, to be true to not just the music, but the sort of mindset as well, and the spirituality. And being true to something, or being faithful to a set of ideals or a set of ideas, is also what religion is about. And that is guidance. That is a set of tracks that you can follow if you are feeling lost, to be true to something. True can also mean that you are true to the music in a sense that you're unconcerned about commercial viability, about production technique dogma, about, you know, what anyone else thinks about it. You are faithful to the ideals of black metal, and despite the hilarious theatrics of black metal, this whole true thing speaks to a sense of authenticity, I think, within the genre. If you're searching for authenticism, if you place value on that and thus are attracted to the idea of being true, and combined with the search for guidance and meaning, traditional religion can feel false and deceiving, and thus you might end up with Satanism. And related to the search for guidance and meaning, there's a lot of I need a strong daddy victimhood vibes in black metal. Like they want their imaginary goat daddy to go punish their perceived enemies, to punish the world that has wronged them. And I think that's like an instinctive reverence for a set of rules that don't necessarily favor themselves, but the more important thing is that this set of rules should exert pain and punishment on their perceived enemies. They feel wronged by the world, betrayed, that the world owes them something. This is, by the way, not unlike like incel culture, which I do think has some overlap with black metal. So they summon their imaginary goat daddy to avenge them, essentially, and thus, again, Satanism. And lastly, on this list of things that I think feed into the scaffolding of Satanism in black metal is this inextinguishable, white hot, infernal fury that angry young men can possess. And if you need a motif to explain all of that fury that you carry within yourself, the flag bearer of evil would be a decent choice, right? And that would be Satan. So that's what you try to crudely explain away your emotions with. Now, am I thinking about these things when I listen to the music? No, absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that that is the prism through which I view the prevalence of Satanism within black metal. That is how I interpret it. But taken together, I think this says something about man, about the nature of man, or at least the nature of angry young men that are possibly on the spectrum. And so through this lens of perception, I perceive emotionally, not necessarily intellectually, but emotionally, I perceive these sort of tributary rivers of influence that meld together to become the overall expression of black metal. I'm listening with emotions, that's what you should do with music, and I feel these things, but I don't actively think about them. It has been really difficult to try to put it into words for this video, but I hope that makes sense. So, am I not repulsed then by some of the stuff being done in the name of black metal and some of the themes prevalent in black metal? Yeah, I am actually. So I am super picky about what I buy. I do vote with my wallet. But, you know, you can enjoy work by Picasso even though he was a misogynistic piece of shit. It's just that his work wasn't trying to spread the idea of being a misogynistic piece of shit. And there's black metal where a record might contain zero traces of the artist or band's private ideas on controversial topics. And then I might buy it, even though I know or find out that, some of the people that made that record hold really shitty ideas or are involved in things that I think are revolting. If you could not stand doing that, if that is like a step too far for you, you have to scrutinize every artist before you buy a record, you should probably avoid black metal because, yeah, it's a bunch of weirdo outsiders with some really weirdo ideas and sometimes really nasty ideas and thoughts about the world and fellow humans that you might not want to touch. And then also, black metal is often really weird and far out. And I kind of like really weird and far out stuff, especially in music. But I think it's art's role to be provocative and uncomfortable. It's just that sometimes you don't know whether the artist, in black metal or sculpture or whatever, you don't know always whether the artist privately holds those ideas or they're just trying to be provocative through art. And how will you know? Statistically, basketball has more injuries than mixed martial arts, MMA. But the point of basketball is not to hurt your opponent. It is an MMA, or incapacitate them. But like, MMA is a sport where you can exert violence against your opponent until they are unconscious. So the statistics don't really mean anything. MMA is simply more difficult to defend on a moral level because of what its purpose is. And if someone making black metal to try to genuinely spread bad ideas and not just be thought provoking, then it's quite different than if, a jazz trombonist beat his wife once. That's not the same thing. And like, if I buy a record, I am implicitly giving money to that artist. Is it my responsibility as a music consumer to police what they spend their money on and to make sure that aligns with my morals? Well, in my personal case, that would mean I would only buy records from vegans because I'm vegan and I don't want someone buying meat with the money they earned from my record purchase. See, this gets absurd. I can't live like this. That's not a viable line to draw for me at least. So, where is my line in the sand? I mean, if an album doesn't obviously and deliberately spread shitty ideas that I can't stand behind, then I might buy it if it sounds good, if I find it appealing. I might know that the artist has ideas that I really dislike, but they have deliberately not included those ideas in the record. What am I supposed to do? Boycott them for holding ideas in private when they're actively choosing not to spread the ideas? But sometimes shitty people make great music. Now I've spent most of this video just dealing with the whole Satanism thing, which I don't want to, because I don't believe in it. I think it's all metaphorical, like I've explained. But me thinking it's metaphorical doesn't help. But a bunch of people think it's real, and that gives me some sort of like guilt by association. By listening to this music, I sort of line up with people that are really stupid and have really shitty and dangerous ideas about how the world works, about how we should treat each other. So I don't really know what the right answer is for how to navigate that. I primarily listen to black metal that isn't of that ilk, that isn't overtly stereotypically Satanist. Some of it might be, but then for those records, I feel like I have plausible reason to think they have the prerequisite self-awareness to be saying those things on a metaphorical level, that the artists are aware that this is make-believe, a big LARP, it's all a metaphor, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of them take it seriously. I don't know. I can't know. And if not being able to be certain about that puts you off of this genre of music, then fine. I get it. You can go on Reddit on the Is It Sketch forum and see if, someone has found something bad about a band by the sort of 6 degrees of separation game they're playing over there. And maybe there's a band that's entirely kosher and fine and fair to listen to given your specific moral ideals and ideas. But if you are concerned about that in music in general, that's a tough sell. So I don't believe in these ideas. I don't believe in the supernatural. I don't believe in the occult. But I feel these ideas on an emotional level in terms of what they're trying to convey, and I sort of where they're coming from, and I can see the allure in playing with these things. And sometimes I like to dip my head into that world, and I like to dip my head into the sonic attributes of black metal because they're quite unique, and there's a lot of like really cool music, really far out stuff, really wild exploration of outer limits of human emotion that exists, I think, only in black metal. And I don't want to give that up. So I am making all of these interpretations for myself in order to navigate the sort of moral minefield. And yeah, so that is my perhaps inconclusive answer to the question posed by this video. Why would anyone listen to black metal? And I'm not saying you should listen to black metal. You do whatever you want. You draw your line in the sand wherever you want. But maybe something I've said here will help you contextualize some of this stuff, help you navigate some of this stuff. And maybe it was just educational, or maybe it just puts you off the genre even more and you swear to never listen to it again. Either way, I hope this provided some sort of entertainment value for you. And if you watched this far, thank you so much. Check out my other videos. At some point, if it's not there already, I'm going to make a video where I recommend black metal albums that I like. This was not the video for that. All right, see you around.